Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all of the praises and the glory to the Most High and His Son, Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakah Kwadash, and double honors to the apostles of the great millstone, and as well as also giving the salutations thereof towards the Yakim worldwide that are forwarding this truth. And shalom to the brothers and the sisters that heed to the gospel overall in the which way that we give it to you. So I want to get right into this article over here, which this reads, risk of civil unrest surging in more than half of the world's countries. Analyst says, the world is bound for more disruptions and unrest in the next 6 months. An intelligence firm said its analysis said that the risk of civil unrest has increased in 101 of the 198 countries it tracked. It cited inflation and the energy and food crises linked to the war in Ukraine as key factors. The risk of civil unrest has surged this year in more than half the world's countries, signaling a coming period of heightened global instability, fueled by inflation, war, and shortages of essentials. According to the Verisk Maplecroft, a UK-based risk consulting and intelligence firm, 101 of the 198 countries tracked on its civil unrest index saw an increase in their risk of civil unrest between the second and the third quarter of this year. The firm wrote in its Thursday reports that only 42 countries saw a decrease in such risks, although there has been several high profiles and large-scale protests during the first of the half of 2022. The worst is undoubtedly yet to come, it added. A Verisk index is based on several factors, including inflation levels, how countries respond to dissent, and how devastating an impact civil unrest could have on a country's infrastructure. The report said that nations such as Peru, Kenya, Ecuador, and Iran have seen discontent emerge on their streets because of rising costs, according to the Verisk Index. Sri Lanka saw the most significant decrease in government stability, as mass protests over the country's worst economic crises in modern history ousted former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa in July. Some of the nations most at risk of civil unrest are middle-income countries, which had the funds to offer special protection during the COVID-19 pandemic, but are now struggling to maintain spending vital to their populations, the researcher wrote. Richer countries and European unions face the same risks, with dissatisfaction likely to rise in Switzerland, the Netherlands, Germany, and Bosnia and Herzegovina due to a fallout from the war in Ukraine. Russia's invasion of Ukraine is supercharging food and fuel prices and stoking the cost of living crises across the globe, the firm wrote. However, the worst effects are yet to kick in. Meanwhile, energy shortages in Germany have led to blackouts and extreme power price hikes, with the country's top regulators stating that the nations must cut back on gas usage so it can later endure the coming winter. The Netherlands, which typically import 15% of its gas from Russia, also face a dilemma over whether a ramp-up drilling in its gas-rich Groningen region and the risk triggering more devastating earthquakes that have already severely damaged 26,000 homes. Inflation will likely be felt more keenly over the next few months and is expected to worsen in 2023, Verisk wrote. Only a significant reduction in global food and energy prices can arrest the negative global trend in civil unrest risk, the firm said. Weather is also the key factor, it added. If colder than usual temperatures hit Europe in the fall and winter, it would exacerbate an already serious energy and cost of living crises, the firm wrote. It added that droughts could also increase food prices higher and set off protests in affected countries, and the next 6 months are likely to be even more disruptive, and the report summary said. Read the original. Yeah, that's it right there. So that's from the Business Insider. And I mean, that's obviously going to be the case because people have to depend on food and energy. Those are the two most important things to people, and as well as a household. All right. Even the scriptures tells you that there's a few things that are a need for men to survive. So, I mean, if people can't get access to these things, then what's going to happen? People will resort to the violence. And I first want to begin by reading the scripture in the book of Isaiah, 2nd Ezra 15, as we always read nowadays. This is 2nd Ezra 15 and verse 14. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction drove nigh, and one people shall stand up to fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be seditions among men, and invading one another, and they shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their action shall stand in their power. A man shall desire to go into a city, and shall not be able, for because of their pride the cities shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. And that's what's going to happen out here. The infrastructure of society is going to break down, and it's just going to be all manner of chaos on the streets. Fires are going to be made up. Fires are going to be made during as always, which is the case during riots. And verse 19, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword, and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. And that's the ultimate reason why 101 countries out of 198 countries are resulting to civil unrest, because the prices of goods have gone up. People need food and energy and other basic necessities to go on and forward in their life. Yeah, so this is the scripture right here, Salaki. I thought it was in the Bible, but it's in the Apocrypha, which the Apocrypha is a part of the Bible. So this is Sirach 29 and verse 21. The chief things for life is water and bread and clothing, and then house to cover shame. So that's the most important things to mankind. So if people can't afford water, which water is supposed to be free, and they can't afford food, and as well as afford a house to cover themselves in, then you're basically asking for civil disobedience among your people. All right. And like I said, this is going to result to a lot of chaos, which is forth to come, which is from the Business Insider. And Varista did a study and found out that is the case, and it's all due to inflation. It's all due to inflation. So this is the agenda of the elite. No matter who's in office, whatever country it may be, all of these countries have an agenda, and they're all serving one's interests. And we know whose interest they're serving at the end of the day, because there's powers above the powers that you do see in this world. And their agenda is going to move forward. Just like right now, we have a new prime minister in office. And the name of that prime minister is Liz Truss, which is a woman. We have another female prime minister down here in the UK. Usually when the prime ministers get into office, they speak a good game, or prior before that a little, when they have a campaign among their people. When they have a campaign among those that obviously support them and to the public in general. But then when they get in there, it's a different ball game, which is usually the case because they're serving the interest of people with a greater power above them. And we know who those people are. So the agenda is still going to be the same. There's not going to be a changing of anything because a different person comes into office. No, they're under the influence of their bosses, and they report to them, and they do exactly what they're told. So I want to read another article. I'm going to go into the mirror.co.uk, which is a UK-based outlet. And this reads, the cost of living crisis could spark civil unrest like the 2011 riots, police chief fears. The police chief fears a repeat of the 2011 riots as the cost of living crises deepen. Chilling documents reveal it is feared that prolonged and painful economic pressure will lead to a spike in crime with a greater chance of civil unrest. An alarming leaked document drawn up with input from the National Police Chiefs Council warns drug gangs, recruitment, and sexual exploitation cases are set to rise. And it is also feared that domestic abusers may not be reported because their partner is financially relying on them. According to the reports, force chiefs understood to be worried that without significant intervention from the government, there may be a return to febrile conditions that sparked widespread rioting more than a decade ago. A document shared with the Sunday Times also warns that the public servants could be more vulnerable to corruption as skyrocketing bills plunge Brits into crises. It says forces face a more complex and unpredictable risk in the chances, let me read this again. It says the forces a more complex and unpredictable risk is the chance of greater civil unrest as a response to prolonged and painful economic pressure. The report says shoplifting, burglary, and vehicle thefts are likely to go up, as well as online fraud crimes, which relies on exploiting financial vulnerability, which I'm going to read once again, the book of 2nd Esdras. Let's go back and start once again with verse 14, and we're going to go down to verse 16 again. Woe unto the world and them that dwell therein. For the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up to fight against another, and swords in their hand. And we're in that time right now where this is going to begin to happen. Or should I say, this is in the works of happening. Verse 16, for there shall be seditious among men, and invading one another, and they shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. And a man shall desire to go into a city, and shall not be able, for because of their pride the city shall be troubled, and the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. And a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword, and spoil their goods, and because of the lack of bread, and for the great tribulation. So this is what's coming. This is what I've just read in here. So people are not going to regard their government. They're not going to regard other people. It's just going to be a free for all. I have to survive out here. It's just all going to be about survival mode. And everyone's going to have that. Everyone's going to be in that state of mind. Everyone's going to have that mode of having to survive through the chaos and getting food, getting sex, whatever it is that people need to get access to. They're going to get it however they're going to get it out here. And this is why the police chief is fearing that a scenario as to what happened, 11 years ago is going to take place. And I agree. But this time it ain't going to be exactly like what happened in 2011, because that calmed down and died down 11 years ago. But in this time, people are going to go crazy. And it's going to be for a long time until the city is no more. Okay? To where the police are going to have to get involved in clamping down on these streets and coming down towards the people with great power. They're going to have to exercise great power. So that means they got to get the boys ready and put on the ground, so that they can put people in their place. And this is when the state of emergency is declared in whatever country that's going to experience these problems. In other words, martial law. And martial law is coming in a lot of countries, man, because when this society collapses, this society is going to collapse on a global scale. It ain't going to just be 1 or 2 or 3 countries. It's going to be a lot of countries, a lot of prominent countries around the world that are going to experience a collapse, as we're all now experiencing. Most of the world is now experiencing a thing of hyperinflation, and you have 101 countries that are reacting and responding to this. So how much more when society hits ground zero? A lot of places are gonna respond and react among the people all around the globe. All right, so that's all I have to really say on that. So I want to move forward, and we're going to read the book of Isaiah 26, verse 5. We'll begin by reading verse. Let me see what I can do. Let me begin by reading verse 3. It says, verse 2. Open ye the gates, that the righteous nation which keepeth the truth may enter in. And thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusted in thee. So when our mind is going to be stayed upon the Lord in that time, which is to remember the words of the Lord, these scriptures, then that wisdom is going to be the stability of our time. And that's going to be our strength for our salvation in the time of Jacob's trouble, which is happening right now. Verse 4, trust ye in the Lord forever, for in the Lord Yahweh is the everlasting strength. For he bringeth down them that dwell on high, and the lofty city he layeth it low, and he layeth it low even to the ground, and he bringeth even to the dust. And that's exactly where the society is plunging to. And that lofty city right now is Babylon, which is America, modern day Babylon, which the Babylonian system has influenced the world. And now we're all under that vibration, especially here in the West. So this Babylonian system overall is coming down to nothingness eventually. And it's happening right now. It's happening right now. It's not about to happen. It's not going to happen. Like I'm speaking in future tense. I'm speaking it like it's currently happening right now, because that's exactly what's going on in this reality. It's currently happening right now. It's being prepared. It's on the works as I speak. So now let's read the book of Psalms 20. They are brought down and fallen, but we are risen and stand upright. And that's what we see happening. Overall, we see the rising of the nation of Israel, beginning with the elect. And simultaneously, we see the downfall of this system, man. This is where we're at in the year 2022. Thus saith Esau, right? Which for as far as we know, we could be in the year 1998 because the calendar's all jacked up. But you get what I'm saying. In the current state that we're in right now, we see that happening. We see the rising up of among our people, the elect, and then we also see the downfall of this system.